And what's the current state of the scandal? I know there are criminal investigations, aren't there?
Yeah, the Met Police Operation Olympus is ongoing. There's 40 something people of interest now, I think.
I think I saw 50.
Yeah, that sort of order of people interested. But nobody's been charged yet. Everybody is waiting on the outcome of the inquiry, which will happen at some point this year. But the thing you have to remember is, if every time you go into a post office today and your sub-postmaster is there, they're still using Horizon. Yeah. This same system is still in use. Horizon is the post office. Without if you switch off Horizon tomorrow, you switch off the post office. The post office today is so aware of and so open about the bugs in it that if a sub postmaster today reports a discrepancy in their accounts, the post office doesn't question it and they just write off the money. So the post, so even today there are tens of millions of pounds worth of errors running through the post office every year as a result of Horizon, which we're all paying for because the post office, were it not publicly owned company, would be insolvent. It only exists by the largesse of the government funding it. So we are all paying today, every one of us, in our taxes for the errors that are still taking place in the Horizon system today. And you hear a lot of calls from MPs and other people about why can't you just throw Fujitsu out, get rid of them, get rid of this toxic company in the post office. Nobody else knows how to run Horizon. Fujitsu is the only company. The post office has almost zero skills in operating Horizon itself because it outsourced everything. It outsourced all the skills and the knowledge and the expertise as well. So here we are, 25, 26 years after this terrible system went in, it's still being used in the post office. It's constantly getting extended. We are paying the bill for every time that contract gets extended, and it's probably going to be a few more years before they move they're able to move to another system. So nobody is being taken to court anymore about this anymore. But this terrible system is still in place, and an organisation in the post office that's still fundamental to British society, if you like, is still using arguably the worst major public IT system there's ever been. Meanwhile, this is Fujitsu's biggest ever and most profitable ever contract in this country. They've made I've seen some estimates saying they've made about £2.5 billion out of this contract. And yet, of course, Fujitsu, there was a select committee hearing last week when Fujitsu's European Chief Executive Paul Patterson stood up again and said, yes, we're very sorry and we will definitely contribute. I just can't tell you how much. And they are putting it off and putting it off and putting it off in the hope of somehow minimising their exposure at some point in the future when somebody comes to them and says, you've got to make a contribution to the bill for this. So, this is still very much an ongoing scandal. Slowly, victims are being compensated. Obviously, you can't compensate them for having their lives destroyed. But even then, those victims are having to fight tooth and nail to get money. I heard, Carl, who's watching now, Carl has done it. Carl Flynn has done an incredible job over the last 15 years writing about this. Over 600 stories he's written, and the number of times he's written a story, and I've been astonished, gobsmacked by the revelations. And even today, after all this, I still find out things that absolutely blow my mind. There was one little stat that came out recently that the average, when the victims have to go through a process of applying, they have to go through this rigorous forensic accounting process to come up with a figure that they claim, and they submit that figure through the process. I think the post office then comes back, post office government come back and says, you claiming this much, we're going to pay you, we think you only deserve this much. The average amount that they have been offered has been 16% of their claim. and they go back and fight, and eventually it goes up to 60, 70, 80%, whatever it is. So even now, those victims are being played at every level. They're being tested to see how resilient are you. When are you going to give up and take the money that we offer? Some of the in that public council, the select committee meeting, some of the lawyers, one of the lawyers said they had an example of somebody who was literally one telephone call away from accepting £20,000 in compensation, but then he decided to ring this law firm instead, who was handling a lot of the claims, and they eventually got him £800,000. So this is still a live scandal in every sense of the word. For all of us in IT, we have to ask the questions of have we really learned from this? One of the looking back now, when the flaws in Horizon became apparent, we knew what questions to ask. If you're developing a system now like this in AI, and arguably we don't even know the questions to ask, let alone the answers. So everybody in the IT industry really still needs to learn the lessons from this, because if we get a post office scandal that's generated by AI, it could be exponentially worse.